Namaste. My name is Preeti Upala, and I am a global thought leader and a multimedia personality. Welcome to my podcast, The Preeti Experience. Join me as I explore some of the most fascinating and crucial issues that affect our world today. I take a unique global perspective on these issues, and the very foundation of my insights is humanity and spirituality. I'm Preeti Upala, and welcome to the Preeti Experience.
Next up, we have the very inspiring advocate Kadambari Puri, who is a government counsel and managing partner at United Chambers of Law, Advocate and Consultants. Ma'am is also a passionate speaker with expertise in legal advisory pertaining to legal structuring and restructuring of foreign investments. She has also been periodically involved in international arbitrations and represented multiple state governments and PSUs before Supreme Court of India. She is equally interested and associated with women power and related topics. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for gracing us today. We also have Ma'am Shivani Gupta, a thought-provoking and fierce senior journalist and anchor with nearly 15 years of experience in media, including print journalism and television. She is currently working as a senior associate editor and anchor with Republic TV and hosts groundbreaking primetime shows and events. Ma'am has also authored amazing books. She hosts one of the most important segments airing prime time and presents her expert opinions about the most crucial issues concerning the nation each day. She's brave, fierce, and known for supporting the truth without any qualms. Welcome, ma'am. Joining them
Thank
again.
you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. Joining them again, we have Ma'am Upala. The panel will be moderated by the enigmatic Mr. Savio Rodriguez, founder and editor-in-chief, GoaChronicles.com, one of the most prominent and most authentic global online news portals publishing out of India. Sir has also been invited to multiple media channels to share his expert opinions about matters of religion, society, and culture. Sir has been a leading crusader and torchbearer against exposing corruption and evils within religious institutions. He can be witnessed presenting his opinions globally in the interest of nation and humanity. He has an impressive, spotless, and very inspiring 25-year experience in media and journalism industry. Welcome, sir. It will be an honor to listen to you today. They shall be introducing and elaborating on the topic, the changing face of India in the global geopolitical and business space and the role of Indian women in this sphere. I will now like to hand over the control to Mr. Savio, and he will continue forward. Thank you so much. Your mic, so you're mute. Kindly switch. Thank you. Kadambari ma'am, thank you so much.
Yeah, Namaste, and thank you for a wonderful introduction. It gives me a great pleasure to share this space with three wonderful women. My mother taught me very early that when you have three women around you or you're surrounded by women, it's normally that men should talk very, very little. So I'm not going to be talking a lot as I normally do. I'm going to be spending time listening. I've had the great opportunity to be surrounded by a lot of women in my life. They've been very inspirational. They've been very encouraging. And most of all, if people understand the kind of issues that I take up, the strengths normally come from the women in my life. You know, whether it's my mother, whether it's my sisters, whether it's my wife and my two daughters, and my wonderful friends, some of whom are on this panel as well. I think women are the real power behind everything that happens. They are the real Shakti. That's my personal opinion, which is why whenever I'm in trouble and whenever I need advice, I go to a woman instead of a man, because I'm sure she will give me the most realistic, unbiased, and absolutely ruthless advice that I might not necessarily agree to. So coming back to the topic, fighting the perception battle in the role of a woman. And when I'm talking about the role of a woman, I'm predominantly speaking about the fact of the role of an Indian woman. You know, when the Me Too campaign happened, there was this, this group of individuals that started to paint India as being unsafe for women. I want to ask these three extreme panelists on this program, what is really the role of a woman in India? Do you think that the Indian woman, in this perception battle of us being unsafe, are Indian women unsafe in their own motherland? And I'd like to start with Shivani Gupta on this topic.
Savio, thanks a lot for asking this question. I think there is no denying and no running away from the reality that India is unsafe for women. You know, I know that we don't like to project our country as some sort of a, mad den where women just cannot walk on the streets. It's not that either. There are women who are going about their jobs on a daily basis. They are taking care of their lives and other people's lives on a daily basis. But we cannot hide from the fact that women or crimes against women are extremely high in India. And there are a lot of crimes that are never reported. There are crimes that a lot of women are dealing in their households. You know, it's not just about whether you're safe on the street. So I don't agree with the fact that India is the most unsafe country in the world, as some rankings will show. It's a beautiful country where women are respected, where women are considered to be an important part of our lives, our households, our businesses, our enterprise, but it is unsafe for women. So that's my personal opinion on it. We cannot run away from the fact that there are issues when women are outside or inside their homes. But speaking just largely, Savio, on the role of women in society, specifically in India, or the perception battle, I firmly believe, Savio, that women need to be taught not to think and behave like women. The moment you put that gender cap on half of your population, you've told them that you have to behave according to what is normalized in that generation for that gender. For my mother's generation, what being a woman was may have meant different. She worked accordingly. In my generation, the definition of what is a role of a woman is far broader, and I can work according to that. But I firmly believe that there cannot be these boxes for individuals. I am an individual first. I am not a man or a woman first. That comes second. And yes, being a woman or a man defines my life in innumerable ways, but I cannot let that win or take over what is me and what is me as an individual. So I firmly disagree with telling women to be like women, to telling women to behave like women. I tell women, do not listen to anyone who tells you that you need to do this to be acceptable. You know, when I was a young woman, I was bombarded by Western images, right? And I grew up thinking that to be a powerful woman, I need to have a corner office. I need to dress androgynously, not like a woman, but, something that's like a man. You need to have a power suit with padded shoulders. It was a very Western concept. You need to be working. You need to put your family, having children after careers. So that was the model of a powerful woman that I grew up with. Now, obviously, I worked myself for 15 years and I have learned my own lessons. And my number one lesson is that there is no one size that fits all. You don't have to prioritize your career to be strong. You don't have to prioritize your family to be considered a good woman. You have to work out a solution for yourself. And that means breaking outside of the boundaries that have been created for us. You know, men love to tell us, oh, you are such a good woman. And I'm like, it's none of your business, man, whether I'm a good woman or not. Oh, you are such a powerful statement for women. No, I'm not trying to be a powerful statement for women. There are thousands of women who are going to set their own parameters of what works for them. You know, the one thing we need to learn from men, and that comes because of the upbringing that men have, is that they don't think about other people's opinion as much as women are made to think about other people's opinion. So my advice to women is, do not think about what somebody else is thinking about you. You don't have to conform to a norm to be considered a good woman or a powerful woman. And I was watching your previous session, a beti or a babe. No title defines you. So my advice is that break out of titles, break out of what the society is telling you. I'll give you another example, Savio. When I talk about why I ignore anyone who tries to mentor me or tries to tell me that this behavior will get you forward or this behavior is not good for you, I don't listen to such people at all. Often in workspaces, for example, I've heard people say, or not say, but suggest that, you should smile a little bit more. You come across as too fierce. They don't tell a man that. Why should I be nice and presentable and pleasant because I'm a woman? So these are the boundaries that I think women need to just absolutely break out of. Do not listen to anybody who tries to tell you that doing this makes you a powerful statement as a woman. Your identity is not your gender alone. Please, everyone needs to get out of that. You are an individual first. You have your own individualistic thoughts, processes, desires, and ambitions. They don't always fit into this box of whether I'm a man or a woman. I don't run my life thinking, Savio, that I'm a woman. And that is the greatest, the most important thing. The moment you stop living your life as a man or a woman, but only as you, you're going to find that you are free. And that is most important, which is why when we talk about perception battle that women are fighting, I think the most important perception battle is to break out of gender norms. There is no such thing as a good woman. There is no such thing as a good man. There is no such thing as an Indian woman. There is no such thing as an international woman. There is no such thing. These are all titles that are made to make it convenient for others to define you. And women suffer the definition problem more than men. They are defined more than men are. And that is, of course, a battle that we have to fight. And more women need to just come out and say that, listen, I don't care for your titles. I'm going to be me. Whether that suits your parameter of a woman at all, I don't care. I think that is my main belief. You fight perception only by destroying perception.
Beautifully put.
And no one box fits any one woman.
Beautifully put, Shivani. I think the point you're trying to make is that your identity and your gender is not your identity. Your individuality is really your identity, right? We're going to move on to Kadambari Puri right now. Ma'am, you are a lady who has been, fighting the cause for women. You are a very powerful speaker on issues. What are your views on this perception battle of the Indian woman in India?
Thank you, Savio. And I thank also the Eternal Hindu Foundation, Thomas Seva Foundation, and K. Siddharth Education Foundation, all the viewers here, to give me this opportunity to share my views. And I feel very strongly about this particular topic, which is fighting the perception battle, a role of women with a focus on Indian women. Now, how many of you would have heard this famous poem? All of you who would have had some education in India or in Hindi language would have heard this poem. Chamak uthi san 57 mein, वह तलवार पुरानी थी, बुंदेले हर बोलो में मुंह, हमने सुनी कहानी थी, खूब लड़ी मर्दानी, वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. Now about Jhansi ki Rani, Sir Hugh Grose, the leader of the British troops, had also commented, the Indian mutiny had produced one man, and that man was a woman. Like this, the similar phraseology is used the world over, not only in India, the world over, for Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, Theresa May, or former Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi, for whom they say that she is the man amongst men. Yeah. Now note the word in the poem also, Mardani, which means like a man. How many times would a successful man be compared to a woman? I would like to ask you. So if you are a powerful woman, you are like a man. You become superior like a man. And if you are a successful man, it is only used, the comparison to a woman is used when you want to assign some weaker trait to a man. अरे औरत जैसा है, अपनी चूड़ियां पहन के घर क्यों नहीं बैठ जाता? So this is the perception battle. So when I say perception, I'm not talking about lack of safety. Safety, yes, safety aspect is a big aspect too. But when we talk about perception, it is there in our day-to-day lives. And this is what I want to make my audience realize: the perception battle that a girl, the moment a girl is born, how to dress, how to behave like a girl, how to conduct yourself in a day-to-day communication and engagement, we do not even notice it. And we just absorb it. Women absorb it, men absorb it. It is not a woman's thing or a man's thing, the perception issue. It is all the genders. And we don't even talk about the third gender at all. They don't exist in our lives. So now, if we take away the pronoun, and this is the proposition I wish to place before my audience today, we coin the terms like female leadership or women in power or empowered women with good intentions. What if we just take away the woman word and simply call everybody, men or women, as leaders in the neutral terminology? I am advocating the removal of pronoun from our legislations, from our laws, when history is called as his story. When laws refer to him, he will mean she, but it is he. Then let all of us be either he or whatever neutral pronoun is to be used. Now, we have a lot of women beneficial laws. You know, some people complain about them. And what have I told you? That the so-called women-centric laws, in fact, create a negative perception and bias against women. You will ask me how. As an attorney practicing in Delhi, and we get opinions to reply to from various companies and individuals. So once my opinion was sought by a company on the required compliances for employing women during the night shift. So we prepared a longish document and we said this. And the next day, the opinion came, what if we employ only men? Now this again, when you talk about women beneficial laws, again, I'll give you another example. Maternity leave. Maternity Act gives you, when a child is born, it gives you a certain maternity leave, 8 weeks of maternity leave. And then the latest act has also mandated creches, that there should be creches so that women find it easy to come and work, operate over there. However, in a lot of corporates, in a lot of offices, I find they will come back to me and ask me, ma'am, कुछ ऐसा बताइए, कोई condition कि 3 साल से पहले they will not take this leave. कुछ हम उनको undertaking या condition लिखवा सकते हैं. अब आपने leave तो दे दी, आपने maternity act में benefits भी दे दिए. But then what happens when the same benefits take away the equal playing field for women? That is what I wish to underline. Now, if there is a maternity leave, why should there not be a paternity leave also? A mandatory and equal paternity leave. Why would a woman only be construed? If a woman is working, you are accepting it, and that is why they need the leave. Now, if you give the paternity leave to a man equally, not only will it help women, but also men. They will get a chance to bond with their child. The whole social fabric will now be accepting of men and women wanting this leave and being entitled to this leave. The employer, the corporates, we are creating an equal playing field for both men and women. And creche, why women need that creche for their children? Why should men also not use that creche? Why should men also not get their children? Why should they not use all those facilities which are there for women? And this is what this gender, whether it is a positive gender discrimination or whether it is the perception built up, it gradually erodes the worth of the women. And that is why we find we have leaders, we have produced leaders in our country. We have Nirmala Sitharamanji, who was the second defense minister of the country, second finance minister, the first one having been held by Mrs. Indira Gandhi. But where are the multitudes? You find the attrition rate as the highest when women get married and start getting children. It becomes being a working mother. I know it is with sheer willpower I managed to stay on and continue with my profession during those trying first few years when my child was still small. Now, this is the entire perception battle that the sensitization for our legislators, for our lawmakers. How can it be made different? By simply equalizing, by simply, and secondly, a lot of men ask about reservations, about why there should be reservations for women. Now, a lot of people also quote that there is Article 14 of the Constitution of India providing equality of laws, and how there should not be any discrimination on account of gender. Yet those very provisions also say that equality cannot be amongst unequals. It has to be amongst equals. So it is only just to enhance and create an equal playing field that certain reservations have been brought about, certain laws have been brought about. For instance, in Panchayati Act, 1/3 of seats were reserved for women. And this reservation in Panchayati municipalities and panchayats it did lead to empowerment of women. Now, yet another commonly held perception which women have to battle all the time is slander and a certain moral ill repute which seem to attach to a successful woman. And both men and women use it as a tool to put a woman down. It is unfortunately very easy to deprive a woman of her achievements and negating her hard work simply by giving her a tag. Being a victim of a lie that causes other individuals to think negatively about you can be devastating. As a professional, I have suffered it at all times, and I'm sure all women suffer it at all times. The moment you step out, the moment you start doing well, a question mark arises. Why is she? Who is she talking to? Who is she sitting with? This is what one faces in the context of being a working woman. And yes, I know as a fact that it is there. It is not just there to brush aside under the carpet, and there is no remedy against it. Now let's evaluate yet another aspect, religion. Role of religion in the perception conflict. There is a predominantly masculine imagery for God in almost all organized religions of the world. Christians would worship the Jesus, Muslims, the Allah, and somehow predominantly it is believed that they were males, right? Now these two religions apart, if we come to Hinduism, there is a concept of divine feminism, Shakti, and there is a widespread belief that the divine power is feminine. Shakti means power. According to this view, without Shakti, the gods are powerless. It is seen to be an intrinsic part of a male god. And the ultimate power of universe is as per the Hindus, is Devi, great goddess. Sikh religion is another religion which professes equality of the genders. Now, how many of you would know why Sikhs have gender neutral names? It is to promote a gender equality. And I think their approach to create a gender neutral perception has been very far-sighted, and in fact is the need of the hour. In fact, if you see, the UN also has recognized that the governments all over, in all the countries, should bring about disruptive legislations and remove the gender issue. Men, women, third gender, the transgenders bill is still there and not being moved. It has to be done. Now, the culture and philosophy of India. Can I take 2 more minutes, Savio?
Please, yes, please
Okay.
go ahead.
So the culture and philosophy of India as a country, it is not averse to accepting women as leaders, we all know. But we do not find, as I said, we don't find it percolating in the masses. Recently, very recently, we had in February this year, we had Supreme Court to order the center to ensure that women officers in the Indian Army are granted permanent commissions, as well as certain command posts and positions. In 2005, women were finally given equal inheritance rights. Now, all these do reflect that Indian society accepts women in all these domains and the status has moved up. Equalization is being done. However, why has it taken centuries to bring about these changes, I ask you? From Rani Jhansi regiment, you know, when Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he took out his Azad Hind Fauj. Women had a regiment, Rani Jhansi regiment. Women were equal and active participants in our national movement for independence. Then why these reforms so slowly? We must recognize that perception conflict is impacting women. Now, the question I will ask all women here is to evaluate how come Lakshmi Bai, Rani Lakshmi Bai, or women like her, how did they break the glass ceiling when the conditions were even worse? How did they break the barrier at that time? I will tell you, I just read on her, and I found that by the time Lakshmi Bai was a teenager, she'd already violated many of the expectations for women in India's patriarchal society. She could read, write, she could ride a horse, she could wield a sword. She talked back to anyone who tried to tell her how to live her life like a woman. Secondly, and this is very important for our women viewers, Lakshmi Bai fought for something larger than herself, the nation itself. This is the second lesson which women have to learn. It is not about yourself. It is about the larger good, which will elevate you above any other human being, man or woman. So if there was another British writer who had written, if there were 1,000 women like Rani, we could have never even conquered India. Now, if that is the power of women felt by our then rulers, the British, why are Indian women holding themselves back? Why not just leave aside all the perceptions, all the taboos, and just forge ahead and claim what the power, the status that they rightly deserve? Thank you.
No, very well spoken, Ms. Puri. You know, the fact is, you're coming back to what Shivani Gupta has said as well. Your gender is not your identity. Your individuality is your identity. So I'll just move on to Ms. Upala right now, Preeti. You know, you live internationally. You hear a lot about stories about India and the Indian women. Some of it good, some of it negative. This India being unsafe for women. What are your views about it? And where really in the international thought process does the Indian woman stand today?
Okay, firstly, namaste everyone. Thank you, Savio, for having me on your wonderful panel. And also thank you to all the other amazing panelists for sharing their views. Yes, I think this is what I can bring to the table, a international view on things at hand. I am so fascinated when I listen to these conversations that happen in India, whether it's secularism or feminism or liberalism, nationalism, and so on. And I think what I've noticed is they're insular, and that's understandable. But I think maybe the missing link is, how does the world view you? And these conversations are fine, but there is a greater picture out there, and things are always relative. You know, I mean, you could be more regressive or progressive, but compared to what? The title is so apt, you know, the perception battle. So what exactly is the perception, and whose perception? So I just want to start by touching on the point that you brought up in your introduction when you said there's all these news stories coming out from India about it being unsafe. Well, I just want to let your audience know that the official figures, by the way, for the US is that 1 in 5 women have been sexually assaulted, and 1 in 5 have been raped, I believe, and 1 in 3 has been sexually abused or assaulted in their lifetime. Now, that number is dire in the US, and I bet you the numbers are actually not worse in India or other countries. So I think the last person to be lecturing India on these issues is a country like the US that has enough domestic violence and all kinds of discrimination, racism, bigotry, and so on throughout their entire history, by the way. So I think if we Indians forget that point, we just blindly accept these headlines written by people with God knows what intentions that they have, not sometimes they're not kosher all the time. So I think it's important to keep in mind that even in the supposedly the best country in the world, the situation for women is atrocious. And to be very honest, one could say, given the population, those numbers would actually be a lot better in India. I mean, 1.4 billion almost, you will have some cases. To think that you're going to have 0 cases is you need to get your head checked, I think. So I think it's important for us to just keep these things in mind. Yes, there are problems, but there are problems everywhere. We are not we are not that much worse, in the real scope of things. And there was another interesting point that was brought up regarding why has it taken so long for Indian women to really break that ceiling now, today, in 2020, and now they seem to be claiming whether it's parity or equality, and suddenly the regressiveness is gone. Well, ironically, 3,000 years ago, we were much more progressive, relatively speaking. And then, of course, we had other influences. I think nobody must forget that our constitution is based on, I believe, the Irish constitution. A lot of our penal codes come from the British laws, and they were and are incredibly regressive when it comes to things like females and trans and so on. So we blindly adopted a lot of their points, and they became laws in our constitution. I think that's important to know. So the regressiveness, ironically, actually came from the very people that are calling us regressive. And I'm proud that India reversed some of these things recently, because you know what? We are our own people. We have our own values. We've had a 5,000-year plus history to back us. And
I'm so sorry, due to time restraints, we have to wrap it a little quickly. So if you could just please fasten a little bit.
I'll finish in 2 minutes. Those were the important points I wanted to make. So it's important, I think, perception, but whose perception? Look, as somebody who lives in America and looks at India from afar, I'm incredibly proud of our country on so many levels. I think we are stepping up to the plate. We're showing the world what we're made of. Post-COVID, honestly, this is one of the few frameworks that actually works and that has the culture and values intact. We can actually teach the world a lot. They could learn a few things from us. I think America, I am living here right now in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and this place is burning down in many ways. So I think that the West is having a reality check of their own. And of course, we have issues in India. We must encourage women. I think that's what we can do as a society. Okay, we are very strong women. So encourage them and know that what you have is precious, and don't let that go, and showcase it to the world.
Okay, let me ask you 3 women a very unusual situation I witnessed. Okay, and then I'm going to come to Shivani Gupta. And this happened in Goa. So I was driving with a friend of mine, and we stopped at a signal, and opposite the signal near a bus stop, a young man is violently thrashing his girlfriend. Okay, so being me, I got off the car and I intervened in the matter. And she was bleeding, she was like badly bruised, and he literally thrashed her. So I decided to call the police. And I did call the police, and the woman turns back to me and fires me. Okay, she fires me and says, "Who the hell are you to intervene in what is personal?" So my question to you women is, in such a situation, if you were the man who had intervened, what would you have done? Because I had a group of men then come to me and say, "Serves you right. You shouldn't have tried to be a hero."
Yeah.
And I looked at the girl and I said, I'm amazed. I told her in Hindi, कि ये क्या है यार? मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. आपको कुत्ते की तरह मार रहा है. अब आप मुझे बोल रहे हैं कि पुलिस को मत बुलाओ. आप अपने चेहरे को देखा है आपने? She turns around and tells me, आपका प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, मेरा प्रॉब्लम है. मैं उसे प्यार करता हूँ आप कौन है बीच में टांग अड़ाने के लिए? आप निकलो यहाँ से, नहीं तो मैं पुलिस के ऊपर आपका कंप्लेंट करूंगा। ऐसे बुलाओ पुलिस को, देखते हैं क्या होता है। Nevertheless, I want to ask you women, if you were in that situation, what would you have done? Because that is essentially is what I see the problem. That if today
Savio?
women are oppressed.
I have been in that situation, identical.
Shivani, tell me, what are your views on that?
Yeah, so Savio, very interesting point you've brought up. I feel personally, whether I, first of all, remember, whether I am a man or a woman, not just as a man, it is important to remember that. Even as a woman, I would have intervened. As a man, as a woman, as a human, I would have intervened. Regardless of what that woman later felt was her personal business and so on and so forth. At the end of it, from what I was witnessing, she was being beaten and I would have intervened whether she liked it or not. It is an established fact, Savio, that women tolerate abusive relationships. This has been established for all kinds of societies, even in America, for example. Preeti would attest to it. And obviously we know and have seen around us that they try to go through abusive behaviors, but why do they do so? It's the lack of choices and options, Savio.
What do you mean by lack of choices?
I'll tell you. I want to make my final point now when it comes to women and how they can really truly be liberated if they're not. The biggest problem in the country is that women are not nurtured to be financially independent. Financial independence brings with it a kind of courage and variety of options that many women in India do not have. At the end of the day, they are not earning members of their families, or as young women, they cannot dictate terms in their families if their families are browbeating them. They cannot dictate terms to their husbands or even their children later. So unfortunately, there are other relationships. We know this is the ground reality, are deciding what women will do with their lives. And they've also got accustomed to serving everybody else and, going through other people's wishes just to maintain peace, because it is looked like if women have their own wants and desires and, their own progression that they want, then, it disrupts family. So obviously we need to teach both men and women that women need to be financially independent. Why are women looked at as burden, Savio? Why are they looked at as burden? Why do we not want women children? Why do parents not want? It's not because they're inherently sexist. It's because in our society, women are not nurtured to be financially independent, and you have to pay money when they're getting married. You have to give dowry, or you have to live in the prospect that your girl child could face sexual abuses, and parents don't want to go through that. It is as simple as that. So the moment you create an environment where you tell parents that, why do we say beti bachao, beti padhao? Because you educate, give them the education, they have better prospects in earning their money. Financial independence will help them make better choices for themselves. They can leave men who are abusing them in relationships. But most women, Savio, please understand, they cannot leave that relationship. They have nowhere to go. They cannot leave abusive parents. They cannot leave abusive siblings. They cannot leave abusive relationship, partners. So the most important thing, and it would be a ground to up revolution, which will take time, unfortunately. But what is most important is, it is nature and nurture. It is not nature versus nurture. There is a nature that is inherent in us. We are all of our nature. But nurturing is extremely important. Men grow up to think they can be anything they want because that is what they're nurtured to think. We need to nurture girl children to think that they can be anyone. And they often prove us right. In fact, they're proving us right all the time. I wasn't I wasn't brought up to think that, okay, I'm a woman, this is my path, this is my life path, and this is what I have to follow. Especially my father never told me to behave in any way. That is what it said in the beginning as well. The subtle cues, when there's a family discussion going on, I was encouraged to get in and say my piece in front of elders. My father never stopped me. But these are the choices that young women face. When the family discussion is going on, in most households, women are told, okay, you please go out. Or they will sit and not just listen. They will not say their piece. Or if they open their mouth, then their fathers mostly will tell you, ki beta aap chup ho jao. That is what teaches them that, okay, I am not allowed to speak. I am not allowed to think. So these small changes in upbringing will make a huge difference. And yes, these education is most crucial. It gives them financial independence, and that allows them to think for themselves and be heard. At the end of the day, no man would like to be in a situation where he's not earning bread for his family.
Good point.
It's not just about that manly pride. It is also about the fact that it takes away your choices. It is the brute reality.
True, Shivani. Ms. Puri, what are your views on it? You said you've experienced the example that I put forward.
So Shivani has very, very aptly put it. It is the lack of choice. And like you, I also intervened where a woman was being beaten up. And I was the one who was told to just get lost. And I realized I also thought about it, why? And the answer to this was, in the form of another incident when I had done a few years in practice. And there was an intern, a girl who was still studying law. She came and she shared her problem with me. She said she and her brother and the mother were being harassed by the father, and she wanted a way out. So it all boiled down to how many months can you survive? How much savings do you have? In order to continue, at least he's paying for the education, she said. And she realized that 3 of them did not have more than 3 months to sustain.
So essentially, Ms. Puri,
complete her education.
So essentially, Ms. Puri, what you're saying is that it's boiling down to what Shivani is saying, financial independence.
Exactly.
Do you share the same view, Preeti?
Yeah, I mean, the question was, would I intervene? I would. Calling the cops, that's another matter, because sometimes you could end up complicating things because you don't really know how deep the problem is. These things are often not what they appear on the surface. Yeah, financial mobility is an important thing. Also, this victimhood, there's another issue at play here. The abuse and the abuser, that sort of dynamic too. People attract situations, sometimes for themselves, and it happens around the world. It is not. It happens in the States too. The level of domestic violence, ironically, against men as well as women is enormously high. It's shocking to see that this is happening in the first world just as much as the developing world. Yes, financial mobility helps, but I think even more than that is the belief that you can make that call for yourself. I think if your family ultimately should be encouraging you that your life is in your hands and you get to make that call, and you get to make, you can run if you need to. I think that those messages are not instilled in women enough, I think, not just in India, but everywhere. So they need to know that, hey, if I want out, I want out. I think so. There's several issues here, I think, that sort of intertwine in a way. And sadly, this situation of domestic abuse against women is like the manifestation of several things going wrong, right? And then it pops up. It's very unfortunate because I think the people that are the perpetrators of this kind of violence, they're very weak. They're, and this is the only way that they have any level of strength or power in their life. They're actually powerless. And the only way that they get any glimpse of power is to crush somebody else down. And very, very sad that they do it and that they get away with it.
To sum it up, Preeti, because we're running short of time, and Anushka is sending me a message. And normally, if we were to get into discussions, I'll get into serious topics. But the outcome of whatever we've discussed so far, if I had to sum it up, is primarily that your identity is really what is important more than your gender. Number one. Number two,
Yes.
for women to play crucial role for themselves, not for anybody else, they have to first become and move towards being financially independent, which will of course come by being very educationally sound in their move towards financial independence. You know, it's been a wonderful discussion. I have few more questions, but I know we're running short of time. But thank you so much. It's always been a pleasure to talk to you all. And always remember, like I said, my greatest advisors in my business, and I know some of you all would have met them, but they're my two daughters, Cadence and Kiana. So whenever I'm troubled in any business decision, trust me, the most sanest, the most wisest, and the most pragmatic solutions actually come from my daughters. So I'm very proud of the power of Shakti, and I'm very proud to have been discussing this with you three wonderful women. Thank you for taking time out. God bless you all.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Savio,
Thank
and thank you to we as well.
Thank you. Thank you for the panel. It was very interesting, and I really didn't want you guys to stop, but I'm so sorry because of the time constraints. We have to cut it a little shorter.